Hi everybody, it's me again. It is Wednesday, March 18th, 2015, and I am doing a video because I'm really upset, and Edith says it's a good outlet, and I feel like scratching, and I don't want to because I don't want everyone on top of me. Talking. Let's see, I wanted to scratch like twice today. The first time was I went to get my medicine, and Miss Earl said that like one of the other CNAs, Bayonne, was going to get her keys. Shush. One of the CNAs was going to get her keys, and for one of her drawers that she didn't have it. And I was like, "Oh, you lost your keys?" I was just trying to make conversation, and she was like, "No, I did not say that. It has nothing to do with you. And remember in care plan we talked about you listening, and like not everything is about you." I was like, "Oh my god." And it just like automatically made me like want to cry. I was like teary-eyed, but I didn't cry, but it was just like, just a little comment gets to me. And then I started judging myself for like having that reaction because I've had it all my life, and it's just hard. And so yeah, I took a nap and I feel better. But I'm thinking a lot about one of the therapists at program, Holly Brown. She's gonna get married. She keeps talking about her stupid wedding. In 74 days, I'll get married. It's like, yeah, we're going to hear, like, every day the countdown of, like, in 10 days, I'll get married. In 5 days, I'll get married. It's like, oh, my God, Anyway, I hope she gets a better name besides Brown, because Brown is a really weird name. Anyway, she is, like, the worst therapist at this place. Like, she's nice and everything, and, like, she reminds me of Cherie. She's black, and she's, like, has a nice voice, and, like, she is engaging. And, like, she does sort of listen to people, and like I said, she seems engaging. I mean, one of the therapists, Jamie, is, like, totally distant, and I don't even know. But, she's okay in a way, but a lot of her thinking is, like, cognitive therapy, like, you need to change your thoughts and all this crap. And so she'll say stuff that's, like, not even in the right field of, like, where people are emotionally. Like, she literally will talk non-stop about how we need to lift ourselves up and not let stuff get to us and not move around and this and that and the other. And it's like, that's hard to do for anybody. She gave this example of, like, her car broke down and then, like, or she got a parking ticket or something, or tow to get her car almost towed. And then she lost her keys in her husband's car, or fiance's, car. And then she dropped her phone, and she was going out for her bridal shower. She was going to Texas. And she's like, yeah, I, like, had my phone not working, and, like, my, I have less money in my account now, but, I could have sat there and, like, felt bad about it, but I rose above it and, like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, sure she did. Like, oh my God, we don't know. Like, she probably went home and had a few beers, or she could have gone home and cut herself, or she could have gone home and, like, punched out the wall, and, she could have gone home and, like, kicked the dog. We don't know what she did, and I probably, like, 99% sure she didn't just go sit at home and be like, oh yeah, this stuff happened, like, oh well, I don't feel bad about it anymore. Like, because that's just not, like, a person's reaction to stuff. It's, like, it's crazy. And that's just like, someone that doesn't have mental illness. Like, if you have mental illness, it literally affects your brain. Like, a lot of it, you can't, like, yeah, you can help it, of, like, you can learn new skills and stuff, and you can try to apply it, and, like, you can be reaching out and talking to people, but you can't, like, there's a lot that's not, like, conscious. Like, once something gets going, it's hard to stop. It's really hard. And people don't want to go into the hospital. I mean, all my hospitalizations, I didn't wake up and go, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the hospital today, and then, something happened, and I didn't go, oh, okay. Emotions just can get going, and a lot of it is chemical. I'm sorry to say, but it is. And even with medications, it's, it's like a thing in your brain that, is off and is not right, and there are things that, like, that happen, that aren't your fault, or they're not really in your control. And I'm not trying to say that you can't take responsibility. I mean, you need to take responsibility. You need to be working on it, but it's not like a constant thing of, like, oh yeah, every day, day in and day out, I'm gonna I'm gonna totally like get myself to every situation that goes on, all situations, I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna lift myself up, I'm gonna encourage myself, I'm not gonna mope around. It's like, what, somebody with depression, they could be like depressed anyway, like, good things could happen and they could still be like having trouble getting out of bed, everything else like that, and they can talk themselves up the wall in their heads about how, like, I should be, getting up, like, this isn't how it should be, I need to think more positive, I need to do this, and they still can't get up out of bed. It's like excruciating, like, and that people know this. If you're depressed, like, that you need to like take shower, that you need to like reach out, and that it's, you should be, it would be better for you to be, doing whatever it is, but you can't do it. And then that makes you feel worse if someone's saying like, oh, you just need to, not mope around, and you need to lift yourself up, and this and that's. Like, what does that even mean, lift yourself up? From situations. I think even people that have had like really hard things happen to them, and they're like have gone through it, and they're in a better place. Like, I'm pretty sure that they had like times where they were just like, oh my god, like, I cannot believe this is happening to me, and I am so depressed about it. Like, even if it's just like a couple hours or whatever. I have a friend that was like emotionally abused, physically abused. I believe he had to like move around a lot, and and he was abused other situations, and he just kept going. In his life in general, he didn't stop. He didn't he didn't have a breakdown. He just kept going. And I guess his personality is like, he doesn't want to slow, he doesn't want to end up with, any kind of breakdown. He wants to keep going, and that's great, and I think a lot of it is his personality. I think a lot of it is that he doesn't have a mental illness. He doesn't have a biological thing going on that's, affecting his brain, like, physically. And, hold on, they may be vacuuming. Maybe not. And it's just, like, it's terrible. That's all she says, is to, like, you can't mope around, you can't, you have to lift yourself up, everything else like that. A lot of examples from this program is like, this one guy is on antipsychotics, and he sleeps, as soon as, like, I met him, like, first week, I think it was like a couple weeks ago, and he was like all talkative, he was like animated, he had some strange ideas, but he was animated and everything else like that. I think they must have put him on this medicine like the next week after I met him, or maybe the week after, because all of a sudden I saw him again this week, and he has been so asleep and so out of it, and so everything else like that. It's just totally, this medication has totally done a number on him. And like, it wasn't Holly that said this, it was Jamie, who was like just as bad. She was like, yeah, I know the medicine or whatever, but you need to like, push through it, or she made some totally off the wall comment, and it's like, you gotta be kidding me, right? This is a medical thing. This is a brain chemistry. He cannot help this if this medicine is doing this to him. He's trying to get off it. People aren't listening. He's trying the best that he can. And it's a chemical thing. But yet, if you don't come in to the program, you get, harped on because you missed a day of program and you didn't come in. If you're in and you're sleeping and tired and you have your head down, you get in trouble for not participating and not being able to somehow get through it and do the thing. It's like, well, how can you even win? Another example is this poor girl who I like a lot. She's around my age, and she has been on this medication that, again, is antipsychotic, and, it's for bipolar disorder. She's not even on, like, an antidepressant, which I think she should be. But anyway, this medication, like the other guy, slows her down. She sleeps so much. She feels like she sleeps her life away. And it's been like this for a year. And for whatever reason, she can't get somebody to, the psychiatrist doesn't listen, the nurses doesn't listen, everyone doesn't listen, and, it could be her perceptions, of course, we don't know, what people have done or how people think, but from her end, it seems like, honestly, no one's listened, and, she's been on this med for a year and dealt with it. And so, she's just feeling horrible about it. And, understandably, and in one of the groups, I forgot what we were talking about, but she burst out and she was so angry, and she was like, that's it. She's like, I can't do it anymore. I'm going to be non-compliant with my meds. And if I'm non-compliant with this med, they'll listen to me, finally. And like, oh God. Agenda members, that's nice. Anyway, she was like, if I don't take my med, they will finally listen to me. And I was like, yeah, like, that actually made sense. Like, there are people that, like, don't take their meds because they're just, like, totally in, like, a psychotic state and, like, just don't believe meds are going to work. And, or whatever, they're not, like, in a sound mind. And that's, fine, they're struggling too, it's not, I don't judge them for it. But she was seriously, talking clearly, had thought this out and clearly was saying it. And, I agreed. I said, I think that's honest. I'm glad that you were able to speak up about that and say the truth. And I mean, if she's off it and she goes to the hospital, well, hopefully the hospital people, at least maybe the nurses will listen, someone will listen. I really think she needs to get a new psychiatrist, but it's so hard. It's so hard navigating these resources. They don't make it easy for you. And that's the thing. People that say all this crud about, you need to pull yourself up, you need to lift yourself up, you need to, not, you can feel certain emotions, but not for a long time. It's like, what the heck? Do you have a time limit that you're going to give us? That it's okay to feel depressed for, 45 minutes a day or something? Or it's okay to feel angry for, like, the first, 20 minutes of something that makes you angry and then you have to stop? I mean, that's what that makes it sound like. And it's just like, so I don't, and so Holly dared to say to her, and the more that I think about it, the more it makes me so angry. She says, well, sometimes your thoughts and behaviors can affect how this medication works. I'm like, excuse me? Did you even hear what she just said? She has been dealing with this for a year, this medication. If it were me and I knew it was doing this to me, I would have said something like the first probably 6 weeks. I would have been like, I'm not taking this medication. You all can go to hell. I am doing my thing. I am not being on this. You can take me to the hospital. God, especially in the beginning, I hated everybody. When I first came here, I was like, hell to everybody. I'm just doing my own thing. I don't care what you say. If it doesn't make sense to me, I'm not doing it and whatever. But, even now, if the medication wasn't working, I would just be very clear and say, I'm not taking this medication. So the fact that she put up with it for a year is, I don't know her situation or her, maybe she don't. I think she's just kind of hopeless about it because everyone is brushing her off on it. But the point is, she did it for a year, and I'm sure, she doesn't seem like someone that mopes around, and, she seems like she's trying her best. And even if you are someone that is very depressed, then you shouldn't judge that person. You shouldn't be like, oh, then it's something wrong that they're not lifting themselves up. Then that's the reason why they're depressed, is they need to think about their situation differently, and that's going to make them not depressed. When that's not true. It's like, it's just insane. So I heard what Holly said to that girl, and at the time I was just, I was trying to focus on typing stuff up because, especially in Holly's groups, I need to be typing, and I literally just type everything she says and just fill out the worksheet, because it's usually her lecturing us on something, and it's like class, and I just take the notes and I send it to her. And she says, great listening. And that's, that's fine. If I'm not typing, I would go crazy. I would be in tears in these groups because I can't stand it. It's wrong. It shows that the person doesn't know a thing about what it's like to live with mental illness. It shows that, they're just going to try to put some quick fix solution in, that they don't even understand the context of what this person is really going through. And it's just, it's condescending, and it's insulting. And it's insulting to what the person has already done to help themselves. They treat you like, oh, you just need to do this, like it was like the most obvious thing. It's like people, it's like when you call, I don't have very much water at all. It's like when you call the computer place. It's like when you call the computer place and they say, did you turn it on? It's like, duh, or did you plug it in? And they have to ask that because, one step at a time, they have to start at the beginning. But, it's the same type of thing. It's like, well, did you think about this? It's like, well, no, duh. I'm sure anyone who's depressed has said to themselves, I just need to push myself. I just need to think about this differently. I just need to, because people don't want to be depressed, and they judge themselves and tell themselves this stuff. they don't need to hear it from a therapist. Even if a therapist is saying, well, I'm not judging, but it's like the subtext of it is like, well, yeah, you are. You're not on my wavelength. You're not looking at it from my point of view. You're not seeing, what is going on with me. And instead you're, just saying these stupid things that you saw in a book or that you have to do because the state won't pay for this program anymore. It's like, it's absolutely insane. And, for her to say that to that girl, I think she was angry enough. I mean, she was crying after lunch. I felt so bad for her. But, I stood up for her. I didn't say, I hated your comment, but I said, I thought it was admirable that you spoke the truth. But, I've been at other places before, where people have done the cognitive whatever. I mean, there was this group at Turning Point where it was called Dealing with Unhelpful Thoughts. And I walked out of the group one day because I couldn't stand it. I forget what they were talking about, but it was something about seeing your situation differently or doing something along those lines. And I was just like appalled because, some people's situations are really suck. It's like really hell. Like, I'm lucky that I have a place, to live and meals and, I don't have to fight for food stamps or anything else like that. I mean, there have been people that I've known on the internet and probably in the real life, I just didn't know it, But people that I've known, a couple of people I can think of that they are struggling day to day in an apartment that has bed bugs, that is dirty and infested and, in a poor, bad neighborhood where there's, gangs and violence and, that's the only place that they can get into, or they're trying to move out, but they can't get their stupid Section 8 voucher, or they're trying to work with a caseworker that says, well, you can get services, but I'm going to take your kids away, because obviously you're a neglectful parent or something if you have your kids in this situation, or just something stupid, fighting for food stamps, fighting for unemployment, all with having a mental illness that affects just the regular day-to-day life, never mind having to do all that crap. And it's just, I don't even have the words of how I feel when people say, oh, well, they just need to think about it on a different perspective. They just need to, have hope. You need to always have hope. Well, you know what? If I was in a rat-infested, bug-infested apartment and I had to fight for food stamps every day, and I had kids that were hungry, I had kids that had special needs from, whatever, if that was the case, or, had mental illness because it was in the family. I had, a husband that was also special needs. I mean, I'm taking an example from a person that I talked about, met on the internet. Husband that has special needs, kids that have special needs, and I can't get to doctor's appointments. I can't get to therapy. I can't pay for anything. I'm not going to have any hope. I'm not going to have any hope whatsoever, because the whole system is against me, and I can't get anything day to day. And if you're going to tell me that I need to have hope, I'm going to tell you to go in that situation and see how much hope you're going to have. Because I doubt it's going to be very much at all. And that's an extreme example, but oh my God, it happens so much. So many of the people on the street have mental illness. It's just incredible. And the system sucks. And the resources that everyone says is so good is whatever. The resources that everyone's like, oh yeah, you can go to like welfare, or you can go and get food stamps, or you can go and get, community mental health counseling. They make it hard for you to get those resources. And I don't know why, but they make it hard. They make it feel like you're the one, I don't know, like you're inconveniencing them to get these resources, or like, oh, you need to do this and this and this, to have these resources just for a certain amount of time. And, they don't get it, that like, it's just insane. Like, say community mental health counseling, you finally get in and you only get like 6 sessions or something to do this stupid fix your thoughts crap for 6 sessions, and then they're going to say you're good. Or you get a case manager for a few months, and then, you get a new case manager and you're just passed through the system, and somewhere along the line, your file ends up on the wrong desk and you don't have a case manager for months, and you call and call and call, and they're like, oh yeah, you should have had a case manager, but it got misplaced, your file, so whatever. And I'm using examples, but let's go back to the program. The people there that have their heads down and are not participating are not doing it because they're like being resistant or oppositional or whatever. A lot of them are on meds. that make them tired, very tired. I was even tired yesterday, and I was like, it's after lunch, it's hard towards the middle of the day to like keep yourself going with depression and with these issues. And Jamie was kind of like, this woman, other therapist I hate, was like, oh, well, you just have to push through it, and if you had a job or whatever, you would have to deal with it. It's like, well, not necessarily. Like, I would get a part-time job, or I would set it up so like I had volunteering, or sometimes you just can't go in, and you want to really bad, but you can't. And it's I think there are times when you need to push yourself through, but especially with the cases of the medication, that really gets me, because it's not their fault, and they were put on this medication by a person that looked up in a book and said, okay, this medication is to treat bipolar disorder, let's put them on it. And they have no idea what it's like to take that medication. They have no idea at all, and they just put you on it. And if they're a psychiatrist like some of these idiots that people are having and that I've had before, they don't listen, and then you get cut down for being negative, or you get cut down for not being compliant, or you get cut down for being resistant or oppositional or whatever, and it just never ends. And if that's how they're going to treat people, then that's insane. And that's wrong, and I think it's insulting. I mean, that's really the word for it, insulting. Insults the person's own intelligence, insults the person's what they've tried in the past, how they're doing now, what they have to go through day to day, all the things that they've tried to come up with to help themselves, even if it's unhealthy stuff, they're trying to live. And even if they're not trying to live and they're suicidal, well then, I think sometimes you have a right to be. Nobody can blame you for feeling so bad after life has like sucked and nothing's worked, and or for a period of time nothing's worked, or you've tried this and you've tried that, or whatever, the depression just becomes too much. Then I understand, and I don't think you should be shamed on it. I don't think you should be told, oh, you're not really feeling that way. I don't think you should be told, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. I don't think you should be told, oh, you're selfish for feeling that way. I think, if you have a good person to talk to that really listens and is going to allow you to feel those feelings, in a safe place, then that's good. And I'm going to say something really, really, really controversial, and it's just my opinion, so trigger warning. 1, 2, 3. Giving people a chance to turn back on shut the video off. Trigger warning is, if somebody really wants to kill themselves and they've tried everything they can think of and they're just in too much pain, then gosh, I would really miss that person, and I would be so sad, and I would have so much grief, and I would wonder if there was anything I could have done. And I think that's the process of anyone dying, and it would be a trauma for me, but I wouldn't blame them. I would understand why they made that decision. I would be really, really sad, and I would be really angry maybe for a while that they did this, but I wouldn't be angry that they, I wouldn't be angry that they didn't decide to live, or that they didn't, that they didn't fight hard enough, or, whatever. I would be angry that there wasn't help for them, that they got so much help out of this system, and that there was no help for them, that there was nothing that they felt they could get, and that it's not just them being depressed, that it's true, that sometimes there is nothing, and that's what I would be angry about, is that sometimes there is nothing that can be done, that the person feels that bad, and that's what I'm angry about with these therapists, that they don't understand, and that sometimes you do feel hopeless, and that sometimes you do feel depressed, and sometimes you are anxious, and that there is nothing that can be done about it in that moment, and that people saying this stuff is like I said, deeply insulting and deeply hurtful and just beyond anything that I can, even grasp as helpful. And I truly hate this behavior. I hate this therapy. I hate people that are so, assuming that their thing is going to work. That if you just switch your perspective, if you're open-minded, and I agree with the open-minded part, and I agree that, you should, try to listen to people, but the whole, oh, you're just thinking about this the wrong way, that's what hurts, if I were trying to not, if I were really anxious, like when I get really anxious or really depressed or I want to cut, like I just said earlier, when I got upset over the nurse saying that, I knew it was a little thing. I knew it was not personal. I knew it wasn't something that that other people would think was a big deal. And I judge myself because I have a lot of judgment around my feelings, and it's from my family, and which makes it even worse when people are like, oh, you need to, you can only feel feelings for a certain amount of time, or, that's what it sounds like when they say you can be angry, you can be sad, but you can't be it all the time, and it's like, well, what the hell? But, I just, lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's just, they don't understand. And I think they're almost doing more harm than good. Oh, what I was saying was, yeah, I just knew what I was saying. With the thing, with the nurse. I knew it was so people say like, oh, don't take stuff personally, blah, blah, blah. So, like, I could say to myself, and I probably did say to myself in my head, and, I didn't let myself, like, totally break down. Like, I just, I had, like, teary-eyed, and that was it. I said, I'm sorry, and she said, okay, and I took my meds and I left, But I could tell myself, this isn't, this isn't, she's not doing this personally, this isn't really something that is, worth getting upset about, this is a little thing. I could go through all that in my head and still be crying. It's like, I feel like your thoughts are on one level, like one track, and your feelings are on one track, and they're running like parallel to each other. And yes, your thoughts are going to affect your feelings. And yes, your feelings are going to affect your thoughts. But it's not that straightforward. When you factor in when you factor in brain chemistry, when you factor in, totally depriving systems of social systems that don't give effective services at all for people's economic or, whatever you want to call it. There's some word, I'm blanking on it. Economic or whatever, social, getting food, getting basic stuff, when that's just totally hitting a wall. Then, and what I also think about is, and I think I'm a very complex person and complicated in my mind. There are a lot of things that go on at once. So it's usually not like an A, B, C, A happened and so then B happened, it's more like, A and B and C, and then we jump to, K, and then that made for Z, it's all over the place, and it's so many factors, and it's not linear, and it doesn't necessarily even make sense. So, I sort of look for the deeper meaning of things and the deeper reasons for things, and try to look at all those factors when I think about a person. And by the way, I have a bachelor's in psychology, so I think this way. But I think I even thought this way even when I was a teenager. My parents were always like, you think so deep about stuff, and you act like a psychologist. I'm like, no, this is just how I think. But anyway, like an example, one of Abby's little stupid things was there was the statement, like, we were looking at, like, negative statements, and it was, like, the extreme negative statements. So, yeah, I agree that it's not, like, if you extreme believe this, like, all your life, of course, like, you're not gonna, if you sit around believing this one thing, then you're not gonna get better, But again, there's a reason why you would believe that. But, this statement was like, if I get rejected, then I'm not worthy. Or, if I get rejected, then, if I'm alone all my life isn't worth living. And Holly's reaction to that was like, well, if you're rejected, it's their loss. Or, yeah, it's their loss, not your loss. And, there's something better out there for you and whatever. And, I think that makes sense in a way. But, like, it's still wicked hard. And it's wicked complicated. And it's like, okay, so I guess an example, like, all right, like, you meet this friend, and, like, you think they're going to be a good friend, but then they end up being, like, just wicked, too much to handle, moody, and, like, you try to set boundaries, and they won't respect the boundaries, and, but you still think they're a good person, and you think that they like you, but then they break off the relationship. And it's like, well, okay, like, I had all that drama, and you're right, there is something better for me. Like, I went through that with an online person. It was like a mess for a whole month. Like, I tried to help this person. I thought we were friends, and we weren't. And it was like, okay. If you go on a job interview, and, like, you hate say you kind of like it, but then, stuff kind of, flags up for you that you might not. Or, like, say you like it, but it's, like, a huge amount of hours. And you're like, well, I like it, but the hours, but I really need a job, and I want this. But then you get, they say no, and, part of you is kind of like, well, God, that really hit my self-esteem, that they did say no, and I have to go for another interview, and, it's depressing, but in another way, maybe it's good. Are you in situations like that? But let's just say, like, other middle-of-the-road, like, situations. Someone that, if somebody feels, for you to feel rejected, it has to mean something to you. Whatever the thing is that you feel rejected on has to have some meaning for you in order to feel rejected. Like, someone could say something to me, a total stranger could say something to me, like about my blindness or some comment or whatever, and I'd be like, oh, that's rude, but I wouldn't feel rejected. I wouldn't feel like they're personally, don't want to, are hurting me, or, I'm trying to approach them and they're not, whatever. But if you're trying to make friends and all of your attempts to connect are being pushed away, then you feel rejected because you're trying to make friends and you're doing the best that you can and all your attempts are being pushed away. There's a reason for it. If you go up to your parents, if you're a kid and, like, every time you come home from school and you have a problem, your parents are too busy and, don't, like, just ignore you, or every time you come home from school and someone bullied you, or you fell off your bike, or you're upset, like, then they just tell you not to be upset, and then you're going to feel rejected. And then when you meet someone later in life that brushes you off, you're going to feel rejected. And it's not just like, oh, I think this person, doesn't like me. I should be thinking that it doesn't matter. And I feel rejected. But I should be thinking that it doesn't matter. The end. It's not like that. It's so not like that. There are so many factors that go into what goes on in a person's head and what goes on with a person's feelings. And a lot of it doesn't even make sense. Sometimes a person can't even tell why they're feeling something, why they're thinking something. They just feel it at a depth that is so strong that nobody can stop it. No outsider can take that away from them. If you feel hopeless because, everything in your life is just going downhill, then you feel hopeless. And you have a right to feel hopeless. That doesn't mean it's good, but no one can take away a feeling from you. No one can be like, oh, you're not supposed to be angry. Like, wave a magic wand and you're not angry anymore. If you're angry, then there's a reason for it. If you're, like, depressed, then there's some reason for it, even if it's like you don't know the reason. So I think in therapy, in these groups, this is what we should be talking about. We should be examining situations deeply and saying, you know what is going on? Why am I feeling this way? Not here's how you don't feel it, but what can we do? What are my thoughts on this? Oh my God. What are my thoughts on this? What are my feelings on this? And what's led up to this? And, let it out. Like, talk about it, and, just don't try to say, oh, I need to just tell myself this and this and that, and it's going to make it better over time. Because that's not really true. I mean, it can work for a little while, I guess. I mean, that's kind of what I tried to tell myself for the longest time about my depression. It's like, oh, well, I'll just keep busy. And if I keep really busy and I just stay positive and I just totally, don't take stuff personally. And for me, that meant like pushing stuff away, and just something happens and I'm just like, oh, well, I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to put it in the back of my mind. It doesn't mean anything. It worked for like 3 months. Yeah, like 3-4 months. And I tried really hard and tried to do everything I could. And then I had a huge breakdown. Because that was probably what I was doing all my life to one degree or another, because of my family and what's been going on. I'm not blaming my family. I'm saying because of what I was faced with, day in and day out. And it's just more than just your thoughts. It's more than just your behavior. It's more than just your feelings. There's reasons behind everything. And I realize in a short-term thing, you can't get to the depth of everything. But, I mean, I've heard there are treatment programs that have process groups, and a process group is about talking about stuff. And not just going, oh, blah, 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 here's a quick fix. But really talking about it and getting some understanding from hearing other people in the group, and maybe even hearing, hey, I feel hopeless too. And, and God, I don't even know. In cases that are just really horrific. I don't know what to say. And I don't think there's anything anyone can say for cases when it's really, 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 really horrible. And there is nothing. And it's not because of the person, it's because of systems. It's because they're not getting the support that they need, because the support isn't there. Or they've gone through so many horrible things in life, so much trauma, that they just can't come back from it. That that's just too much. That's just too much. And so yeah, I mean, those are my feelings on the whole thing, and I wish that that's what they could provide in a group setting. And one of the programs that I was looking into that I wanted to go to, but it was private pay, did sort of do that. They talked a lot about the brain, which makes sense, about neuroscience, and how to work with stuff on a brain level somehow to try and look at that, which I totally agree with that. They did a lot of I was just looking at a flyer. They do a lot of process groups on how to basically relate to one another using the group, which I think totally makes sense. And they do a lot of, I think they do art, and they do some different stuff. I mean, I think they do DBT, which I think DBT is, if you're going to do a skills thing, do that. I wish they had that at this program, just because it's gentler. It's about, trying to accept yourself, accept situations even when it really sucks, and not just about throwing a Band-Aid on it of you just need to change. And so, I mean, that makes a little bit more sense to me, and combining it with other stuff I think makes sense. Doing this some thing out of a book, or somebody that's so rigid on this is the way that they look at things on this narrow lens, I don't believe is helpful, especially for people that are chronically mentally ill. I think it takes a whole lot more. And I think it takes a whole lot more to support anybody, but especially, mental illness. So yeah, I mean, those are basically my thoughts on the matter, and I feel better. And it's 2:30, and so my friend should be home soon. Yay. So I'm gonna just hang out, and I feel like I got a lot out of this. So thank you for listening. Bye.
My move help web stop button.